So yeah, again, thanks so much for reaching out. And this is the first time I've taught this class, so it's really exciting to be able to talk about it. And it sort of came out of an urgency, a place where I realized we needed more venues in the classroom to sort of discuss what we were all going through at home in different ways. So I am a recent PhD from UC Berkeley.
Okay.
I thank you. I graduated in last summer, actually. So I just learned the term that some people are referring to themselves as plague doctors who graduate in the in the pandemic, and so I'm one of those. And so I began as a lecturer on at UC Berkeley in the Italian Studies department in the fall. Um, and in the fall, I took on some classes that were already assigned. And so I didn't develop any curriculum there. But this semester, so in the spring, I was asked to come up with a curriculum for a reading and composition course, which is a course that I've taught many times in the past. And it's a writing course, but you're able to integrate literature and culture or film. We did a lot of film and anything that you want to sort of integrate in terms of to complement the writing process, basically. Also criticism. Um, so in the past, I've taught it on themes like I'm a translation scholar, and so I'm interested in translation. But I've also taught it on a theme was like study abroad. We sort of thought about so it's sort of open based on what the interest, what my research interests are, and what I think will connect with the students. And so that's how I came up with the idea of stay at home was the theme that I chose. And so the class is structured around, reading materials, and we sort of brought in a bunch of things across the curriculum that have to do with stay at home in different time periods. Because it's an Italian studies course, we started with Boccaccio and the Decameron, and sort of worked our way through a bunch of different texts, both Italian and non. Um, but I was inspired particularly because as an undergraduate myself, years and years ago, I read a story, a novella by American author named Katherine Anne Porter, Pale Horse, Pale Rider. And it takes place during the 1918 flu epidemic. And it's an incredible short story, or it's about like I guess like 80 pages long, so it's between a novella and a short story. And I just remember I read it my senior year, and I remember just connecting so much with this protagonist and the story, and yet feeling like I was experiencing a story as if it were set on the moon, like I had nothing to compare it to. And so I really was I hadn't read it since that time. And so I was really looking forward to returning to it with these students. And so I thought about the Decameron, and I thought about Pale Horse, Pale Rider, and this is that's sort of where the syllabus began, sort of thinking about how we could think about moments of either the plague or epidemics in different ways, and how it's represented through literature across different time periods and cultures. Yeah, so again, we're not doing like a historical overview, and it's not even, we don't even get, it is pretty comparative. So we don't get too in depth into any one, historical moment, but the emphasis has been, again, critical thinking and critical reading, and using the lens of our contemporary experience, and our current stay at home experience, and trying to apply it to what's going on in the stories. And I think it has allowed the characters to sort of pop and the issues to really come forward in a way that might not have been the case even a couple years ago. Um, so yeah, so the students really, I've found, really want to talk about their current experience as much as possible. So I try whenever possible to sort of work it in either through writing exercises or sort of check-in, or whatever we can do. and we're actually ending, so this week is our last week of instruction, and we're ending with something that I'm calling, so the title of the course, or the numerical, whatever moniker of the course, is R5B, and I'm calling it the R5B Decameron. And so I'm having the students each tell a story that they has moved them somehow and helped them navigate the stay-at-home experience. And then we'll be discussing it. We started a little bit today, and we'll continue in our last class meeting. So I'm really looking forward to that. Oh, where to start? It's a totally different ballgame. When I when I began as a lecturer at UC Berkeley, so just in the fall, I had taught a great deal as a graduate student at Berkeley. So I sort of had an understanding of the different challenges of each class that I was taking on. But then the switch to completely remote was baffling. Um, and I checked in with some friends. I have some friends and colleagues who prefer to teach online, or who have taught on different online platforms and programs, and have taught asynchronously, and prefer teaching asynchronously even before the pandemic. So in the fall, I was teaching asynchronous classes, and that was a whole new, it was sort of a crash course for me. And so, I tried to gather as much resources, I guess I could. UC Berkeley, provided a lot of resources in terms of, how to set up your screen, and how to set up everything so it's inviting, and how to make eye contact, and all of these things. But there's only so much you can learn before you get in there with the students, or asynchronously, get in there on your on your recorded screen and just go for it. So I would just say the just getting used to the differences, and sort of understanding that even though this has been a temporary uh, sort of band-aid year for a lot of instructors like myself, who didn't set out to become remote instructors, or in the digital humanities at all, suddenly realizing, oh, there's this whole other discipline that now becomes an essential part of my life. And so I think that that's been one of the navigating that transition, I think, has been challenging. And then I just miss, like many things with stay at home or with the pandemic, I just miss being in the room with the students. There's something about the magic of just, being around a seminar table that is really hard to reproduce on Zoom. I'm sure you have experienced this, but even with the best guidance, and there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, I would just say just patience, and a little bit of a sense of humor. My sense is that, students, at least my students, most of them are freshmen and sophomores, and they're sometimes taking 4 or 5 classes online. So they know much more than I do, just that how much it varies, from instructor to instructor and class to class. And I think just everything, giving everything with a grain of salt. And I've been trying to just be as empathetic and open as possible, knowing that you don't know what's on the other end of the screen. Yeah, I think I am a little bit surprised at how much the students want to talk about the current moment. I didn't have, I could have had just, like a plague theme, certainly with Italian literature, or just different, there's different texts that crop up that people are revisiting now, like Camus' The Plague, or there's other things that are specifically about the plague itself in different historical moments. And I didn't go that route because I didn't want us to sort of feel trapped in that subject if we needed, a little bit of distraction or escape. Uh, And so I tried to mix it up. We also read Italo Calvino's Baron in the Trees, which is not really about stay at home, but it's about a boy who decides to climb into the trees. It's sort of an allegorical narrative about the Enlightenment, but a boy decides to go into the trees at the end of the 17th century, and he lives in the trees his entire life and sort of explores different cultures and communities, always living in the trees. And so this idea of restraint, I guess, was something that I was interested in sort of pulling out as well. And the students were game for it. They were really, they liked the text. It's a fun text. It was fun to talk about. But I guess I was surprised at how much they just really wanted to fixate on, or whenever there was an opportunity to relate to the current moment, they really wanted to go there. Um, and yeah, I guess I didn't know if that was going to be the case, but it did strike me and surprise me that it wasn't escapism that people seem to want as much as just a way to sort of understand the moment right now that they're experiencing. I'm not sure actually. I've wondered if I might offer it again because of the type of class it is. I could probably offer it again with some tweaks here and there of different, adding certain texts and removing certain texts. Um, I think that it would be interesting to try to revisit the subject in a year or 2 years from now. Again, in light of how much people are wanting to process. I feel that in myself and I see it in the students as well. Just sort of, we're getting through it right now, but maybe a year or two down the line, it might be a nice theme to return to with some distance.
Mm.
Um, so so yeah, the flexibility of this type of course with the writing emphasis is that you can sort of uh, continue, and there isn't really I don't know, it's sort of open. So yeah, I'd be interested in offering something like that in the future. Um, it's been okay. We've all had our health, and we have family close by. I'm from the Bay Area,
Yeah.
so that's been a positive aspect. I have a son who just turned 5, and he's wonderful. He's been a protagonist in my online teaching experience as well, since he'll pop into office hours and he'll
Oh,
pop into my classroom sometimes. But like all parents, it's been really a challenge to navigate, what his needs and his learning at home, with, what my students need, and then, my own career and my own work. So just the juggling act has been a real challenge. Um, but this semester was interesting because most of my students started getting vaccinated, and my family and I did as well. And so, yeah, feeling like we've sort of turned a curve, at least with the stay at home order, and feeling a little, we're still cautious about everything, but it's been nice to feel like at least there's hope on
yeah.
the horizon. The other thing about teaching remotely is I have students from all over the globe. And so some of them, so with our theme being stay at home, some of them were not actually under a stay at home order. Um,
Interesting.
and so just sort of navigating that in the classroom was really interesting, as well as they all sort of looked around and said, like, okay, so in China, you don't have to stay at home anymore, but here in, you know, Bahrain or whatever, we do, and in the US we do, and that's been, in terms of this sort of comparative look, it really, I think, gave a different perspective for all of us.